I think the more that you become faithful, the more temptations come. One of the things that I was struggling with was, temptation and, drinking and smoking. Those things weren't aligned with my goals. And once I stopped doing them, I started to feel more of it. Oh my goodness, it was like 2 days ago that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. Like, something like a drink would be really nice right now. But at the same time, it doesn't align with my goals. How do your daily tasks align with your long-term goals? That is important. And those temptations will come. It's easy to go out on a Friday. It's easy to go out on a Saturday. Sometimes, is it worth spending the money, right? Is it worth, that's another $80 down the drain that you can't do something that could have been thoughtful, that you could have invested in yourself. And I think that's very important.
Welcome back to another episode of High Value Discussions, the podcast where we bring you insights, strategies, and untold stories of high achievers who are making an undeniable impact in their industries. Today, I have a guest who embodies what it means to be relentless, disciplined, and uncommon. My guest is a recent graduate at Cal Poly. He is a decorated wrestler and a rising force in the world of sales. But beyond the numbers and deals, he's all about building relationships, creating value, and showing others how to become unrecognizable. In this episode, we're diving deep on how he turned the lessons of wrestling into a thriving sales career, why relationships will always outperform transactions, and how to fight distractions, temptations, and self-doubts on the road to success. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Daniel Vizcarra. If you are going to college, go in there with open arms, be a sponge, and take in as much as you possibly can. So with you, my man, you graduated, you did it, man. It is an accomplishment regardless of how you feel about college. For me, even myself, I'm like, shout out to you, and I applauded you from afar. But what are probably the biggest things that you took away during college and that you took away when you graduated?
So when I was first going to college, I wanted to go to the best college that would set me apart from everybody else. And I had scholarships, and, I had full scholarships from, little schools, but they weren't the biggest schools. And I chose the one that gave me no money. Right. And what I found out of that was like a lot of value. I was investing in myself to be surrounded around very, very like-minded people. Because when I went to other colleges and I was doing these visits, I found myself not really, how do you say it? Those just weren't my people. And when I found out that, there's people on my wrestling team that had businesses, they were doing their thing. And that like really motivated me. It was like, oh, wow, these are the people I want to be surrounded by. Like, these people are great. Like, and the lessons I learned was honestly, the biggest thing that I took from it were relationships. All the people that I met, like, they are just as driven as me. And it's so hard now that I'm living on my own to find something like that, because you're working and, I'm coaching. So it's like hard to find those relationships. And honestly, that was the biggest thing. I really valued that.
Yeah.
The people.
And then when you were obviously done with college, the whole pursuit is to be able to start a career, is to find something that you genuinely love. So what was the whole purpose when you were in college of what you wanted to do? And when you got out of college, what did you pursue?
I think in college, I really wanted to start my own business. I thought that was very important. And I still do want to start my own business. But at the same time, I needed a career to advance that, because you can't start a business with my own money, right? And what I really liked is one of my coaches told me, he's like, you're very good at talking to people. You should go into sales. Like you could see other perspectives very well. And that's what I took that to heart. And I really wanted to start doing sales. And that's when I kind of started, I had a job offer and it was like for a marketing position that didn't pay very well. And it was really stressing me out to try to find jobs. I remember I asked you like, hey man, like, do you know anyone that's hiring, for sales or for, for things like that. And when I got into sales, I realized how much I loved it. I loved it tremendously. Like the people, and I found a company where I feel like all I ever wanted was a company or somebody that invested in me as much as I want to invest in them. And this company that I'm with now is like highly invested. I mean, they spent 3 months out of my year to fly me out to Milwaukee for my stay, for my food, for everything. And they took me on super cool trips and they invested that time into me, and I realized how important that was, because the people that you meet along the way, like, is awesome. Like, I mean, I met these people, and this is how you know they're just salespeople. It's like I met them the first day, and we instantly clicked. It was a group of 14 people, and we all clicked. First day we all went to karaoke. Like, it was a ton of fun, and like, and I was like, wow, all these people are so outgoing. They're so smart, and they're also smart in their own different ways. Yeah. And I find value in like different types of intellect.
And we were talking about off air how a lot of people feel very negative when it comes to the word sales. But if you really dissect that word, everything is sales. In your perspective, especially being in the sales community and world, have you guys ever talked about that, of like why people feel so negative about this specific word?
I think it's because there's a lot of negative things around it. I think, when people think of sales, they only think of, car salesmen and, people that are knocking at their door, constantly bugging them. And when I think of sales, I think of relationships. And I think that people only buy from people they like and people that they trust. Yeah. And how you show yourself with that, I think matters the most.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that, because I sometimes get approached, whether it's like DMs from people who are local, and then I kind of like know who they are, but I've never met them. Right away, it's like they're trying to sell me something. And I'm like, hey man, you don't even know my name. We've never even shook hands. Like, can you actually get to know me first before you try to like sell me on anything?
You know, want to sell me something online?
Exactly. Even in person too. Like, you'll barely meet them, and then right away they're trying to sell something. It's like, bro, like, why don't you focus on building a relationship first? And I've noticed it with that too. It's like, bro, that doesn't come off as trustworthy. When it comes to the conversations in those rooms that you are currently in, what are they preaching to you? What are they instilling into you?
They keep preaching that motivation isn't what gets you far. It's like, how are you going to be consistent? Don't be motivated, be consistent, right? I could be motivated to go to the gym one day on January 1st because I made that goal that I want to get in shape. Yeah. But once February 3rd happens and I don't really feel like going to the gym, right? How am I gonna get myself to get there, right? It's consistency. You hold yourself accountable to go every single day. Yeah. And I think that's important. It takes time. It really does. And I think the more consistent you are with it, and maybe you start off like I heard this rule. It was like the 10-minute rule. If you feel like you don't want to do something, go for 10 minutes. And if you feel like leaving after 10 minutes, leave. But most likely you are not going to leave because you're already there. You already made the effort to get there. Might as well stay. You might as well finish your workout. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is like, okay, I don't really feel like doing this today, but I'm gonna do it for 10 minutes. And I do the same thing with reading, because sometimes I feel like reading could feel like a burden sometimes when I'm not reading the right books. Right. So that's my other thing, is if I open a book and I'm 40 pages in and I'm just like, oh, this feels like a task now, I just close it up and get another one.
Shout out to Grant Cardone, but his recent book, 10X, I found that very repetitive. Something that I've kept seeing, and I was like, I don't need to read this. I was like, probably a couple pages in, closed it. It's up in here somewhere, but I was like, I don't need to read this. I was like, this is just a very get me up kind of thing. But it's like, man, I don't need to come get me up. I don't need some motivational speech here. It's like, I do that on my own. I have that inner drive by myself. Yeah. I was like, I don't want to read that. I was like, I want to learn something.
Yeah. So I want to learn how to do something new. Right? Yeah, exactly. And I completely agree too.
So if it's like history, if it's financial literacy, so on and so forth, something that is actually going to genuinely enhance me.
It's going to spark something.
Exactly. Where it's like, dang, I didn't know that. Let me flip the other page. What's next? So when people graduate college, and something that I've been seeing lately is there's a lot of pressure after graduating college, where it's like, man, you need to have that career. You have to have something dialed right away. But sometimes that's just not the case.
No.
And I don't know if that was the case for you, where maybe it took a couple of months to get at flow, or was it kind of right away where you met with those people?
It was really funny. Like for me, at least, I think I got lucky. The way I really do think I got lucky, but also I worked really hard to get something right out of college. I mean, I was doing interviews my whole senior year, trying to get like I was doing 5 to 6 interviews every single week, just with different companies that I didn't even want jobs with, but I wanted to get that practice, right? Because at the same time, like we were talking about selling, how it's negative connotation, you still have to sell yourself with interviews, right? They don't just they're not going to hire you just because you're smart, right? Yeah. It's also, I'm going to have to be with this person for the next 8 hours every single day. Can I, is this person a robot, or does this guy have a little bit of character to them?
Yes. Personality.
Because
if you're just like, hi guys, my name is Daniel, and I'm from here, this and that, they're gonna kind of look at you like, hey man, can you speak up a little bit higher? We can't hear you over the Zoom. You know
and it's a sales job, and you're like, is that how you're gonna talk to a customer?
Those individuals who are strictly into the game of sales, I feel seriously that they have the whole package. I haven't seen you in almost like 2 years. You look different. You seem different. The aura's different. And that's the whole point. Last time I saw you, you were still in college.
Yeah.
It's a whole different game now. So that's
different.
the point, man. That's what I like to see, is the progression in people. And sometimes maybe you don't see that.
Yeah, it's hard to see that. And, I feel like I have a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes. It's when I got to, it was called a coordinator program, when I was doing that training for 3 months, one of the biggest things that I struggled with is I saw all these people who were very, very smart, and I didn't feel on that level of intellect like they were. These people were so smart. They got, they had 4.0s in college. They did this, they did that. They had these crazy internships, and the way that they were able to retain information was so much quicker. And that's what I had to learn. And I had to take a step back. Okay, it's going to take me a little bit longer to learn, but on a long enough time scale, I'm going to be the best, right? And a person like me that doesn't learn as quickly as someone else, I have to put in a little bit more time. I have to go and do the extra steps that these people might not have to do. And for me, I'm very, very slow learner, and I understand that. So I always had to do the extra steps. I had to wake up a little bit early, and I had to go to, I had to go training with my boss. I would ask him, hey, listen, I don't understand this. I don't get it, but I need your help. And if you ask for help, those people are going to be willing to help you, especially if you're willing to wake up early before work, get there and learn the product. Because one of the things that I struggled with was presentations. Oh my goodness. Presentations were the worst for me. All these people would write these scripts, and they would memorize these scripts. And that was like the hardest thing for me. I couldn't memorize. I couldn't even, and they had this rule where you couldn't look up at the screen. You had to, and it was in front of 20 people that were 20 corporate people that didn't know anything about the product, but they're just going to believe you. And that was like the one thing that we did when we started was, okay, it's going to be like our hell week. It was our Y week, where we had to do 5 presentations in 5 days, and it was on whatever you learned the day before at 3:00. So now you had to stay up all night. I mean, everyone else was like, oh yeah, I got it down. This is easy. Like, I studied for an hour and I know my script. Oh my goodness. I swear to God, I was up till 3:00 in the morning almost every single day trying to memorize a script. I would be so frustrated with myself. And even the days, the day would come and I wouldn't do very well, and I would beat myself up for it. But I would always ask the questions like, how could I get better? What could I do to get better at this? Because presentations are important, but it's just something that I'm not good at. It's not something that comes natural to me.
Yeah. Is that still, because bro, I mean, we are very, very similar within this, man. I do still to this day, have a hard time processing things.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult, because all I want to do is learn. But just like you, we need to put in the extra time for it to be in sync. And something that kind of really, I had a big realization with this. When I learn something, I make sure I say it out loud right away. Meaning, I'll go tell my brothers about it, or I'll go tell my family about it, my friends, so on and so forth. I'll tell them what I've learned, and then it kind of sits with me. So that's what I've started to do, where it's like, okay, it's almost like a presentation, where if I read something, paragraph, few pages, etc., case study, whatever, and if I say it out loud, even multiple times, that's where it like embeds into me. So the more that I implement that, I'm like, okay, that's what I need to keep doing.
Yeah, for me, it's very similar, and I try to record it. I try to record myself saying the things that I think, so it comes out the right way. Because sometimes I get these thoughts, and I'm like, I think I'm onto something here, right? And I have to record myself just so I could be able to learn it, and then I could go back to it. I like doing a lot of I have a lot of videos of myself at my lowest points where I record myself, and one of them was when I was at that program, and I completely bombed the presentation. I mean, I couldn't remember a thing, and I remember sitting myself down, and I put a camera in front of me, and I was like, "This is what happened today. This is why I want to be better. This is my goals don't align with what just happened. How could I get better today? How could I get better tomorrow? Like, what could I do right now that's going to help me?" And, reading was one of them. Reading was a big thing for me. I haven't read a book I started reading books at the age of probably when I met you is when I first started reading books, probably right after that, when I was trying to learn to process things and learn everything, not everything, but the things that mattered the most to me. And that's really hard, especially if you're not around people that know those things. Financials, that's a hard thing to learn. Not everyone knows about this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's why you got to ask questions. You got to reach out to people, and you have to read those books to help you out too.
After you came on the podcast, and then your birthday was coming up, like probably a few months later after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then your mother messages me on, like, I need the best books that you can possibly think of so I can get for Dan for his birthday. And I was like, okay, that's when I know that this guy's saying it out loud, where he wants to improve. He wants to be more literate. He's trying to learn. And the fact, because honestly, she could have just brushed that right through, like, oh, Daniel just wants books. I don't believe him at all. I'm going to actually give him a present. No, she really probably heard you on what you said. And I'm like, no, my son wants to enhance himself. I'm going to go to Daniel because he was just at his podcast. He was surrounded by books. All Daniel does is read. Let me ask him.
That was
warmed my heart.
That was the most thoughtful thing. Like that is one thing about my mother. She's so awesome.
Yeah.
Like she really pays attention to everything I say, and it's like she's really like my best friend. Like anything I have to speak about, she'll listen.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that she puts that into account. Like when I'm like, what do you want for your birthday? And I'm like, I really do want books. Like it sounds like a dumb thing, but I really do. Like I really do enjoy it. Yeah. And it's something at the end of your day or in the morning when you're drinking coffee to sit down, and I think that's like the best thing ever. Coffee and a book in the morning at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m.
Well, that's when you know you're old.
Right? Yeah, for real. But it's a great way to start my morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to show up to a customer at 8 o'clock and not know how to speak to someone or not be awake. Like I feel like when I read, it just enhances the way I think too.
Yeah.
And like to me, it's like almost like it's like church. Like when you're done with church, you feel so good. You feel so happy. You feel so energized.
A high.
It is a high, yeah. And it like gets your week ready, like for that next Monday to be like, I really want to be faithful to God tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like one thing that I've been struggling with is, some habits, right? I struggle with some habits, and I realized that I think I need God a little bit more than most people. I feel like on Sundays isn't enough. I need to go on Tuesday too. Yeah. Because it's so easy to fall out of those habits and not be able to look to God every single day. And that's what I've been struggling with. Prayer is important to me. I think gratitude's very important. And how you see others' point of view is very important too.
My father had his own church. We grew up into a church. My whole family did. And once the church kind of went under, so on and so forth, we all kind of just drifted away from it. A lot of family situations happens, a lot of adversity and situations that happened were to the point where we all questioned our faith.
Absolutely.
And then you get a little older and you still know that God is never going to leave your side. But I still wasn't doing my due diligence. I still wasn't. Yeah. I was thinking like, no, I mean, I'm walking every single day with his principles. I'm not causing any chaos or havoc to the world. But I'm like, well, God has truly blessed me. But the way I honor him is by honoring him and going to his house.
Yeah.
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? So I was being very arrogant for a long time, very long time.
And I think that's okay sometimes too, because, like you said, like to honor him is to go to his house, right? Like how do you show your gratitude to your friends? How do you hang out with them, right? You speak with them. And I think that's what people struggle with their faith is I think that they realize it's just conversation, right? A lot of people only pray when they need something and they never pray when they're grateful. People have bad relationships with churches. And I always say it's like, it's not the church that you're worshiping, right? There's going to be bad churches, but there's always a faithful Lord.
And I didn't go back into church broken. I went in there when things were going great because I know I was like, man, God has blessed me. And I was like, I need to honor him and I need to do it properly rather than just say I walk with his principles on a day-to-day basis. Like, no, there's more to this. And I was like, if
Yeah.
I'm not doing my part, what kind of man am I?
And it's what kind of man you want to be,
Yeah.
right? And one thing for me was I remember it might have been like 6 months after we did our podcast. I was actually still in Milwaukee, and I remember I was writing down. It was actually during work that I had this crazy idea to do it. Probably not the best time, but I remember thinking about what kind of woman that I wanted in my life, right? And I remember writing all these things down. I wrote, what kind of woman do I want? And what do I see in that person? I remember I said, I want a woman of God. I want her to be faithful. I want her to be in shape. I want her to do all these things, right? And then it kind of, it made me think. I was like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing to be able to want that, right? And why would God bless me with a faithful, beautiful, woman that goes to church if I'm not even doing those things? I'm not ready for that. And it's the same thing as like a daughter's hand in marriage. If you don't have your things together, why would that dad bless you?
That's
To
scary.
be it's very scary. It's very scary. So then I started writing down things. What do I like about myself? These are the things I like about myself. What are the things that I really do need to improve? Quick dopamine, things like that. And that's when I started to realize is I can't just be asking for these things and not reciprocate the same things that I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to church, if I'm not going to the gym, and if I'm not, have myself put together, how could I expect that from someone else?
Exactly.
You are who you attract, right? And if I'm going out on the weekends and I'm drinking every weekend, those are the people that I'm going to find. I'm going to go to the bar and I'm going to find a woman who likes to drink on the weekends, likes to black out, do all these things. That's not the kind of person that I want.
And a guy like you, if you did live that lifestyle, you would find somebody who is comfortable and is giving you comfort when really you need challenge. You need a woman to enhance your lifestyle. Like that's the whole point of having a significant other is to enhance each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want her to make me a better communicator. I want her to make me a better lover. I want her to make me a better man. Like there's some skills and attributes that I know that I lack. And the people that I surround myself with, they sculpt me a little bit differently. They helped me get a little bit better. And then when it comes to a significant other, I don't want her to decrease whatever I'm doing or halt any progress. It's like, are we gonna get better here? I'm gonna make you better. Are you gonna make me better? Like, bro, I'm about to be 30, right? And I've been
Mhm.
single for a very, very long time. And the more my standards raise, I would say the little bit more difficult it is to find a significant other.
Absolutely. It's easy to find someone when you don't have your things put together, right? When you're in college and everyone's doing the exact same thing, it's easy to find someone. If you go to a bar and you go out every weekend, I'm sure you could find someone pretty easy.
Yeah.
But it's harder to find someone that's faithful to God, that has their things put together, that has a good job, that really invests in herself.
Yes. Very ambitious, very driven, very loving and caring. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people's principles and values are just very out of whack right now. And that's scary. That's very, very scary. It's like the attention game. You know what I mean? It's like, how many guys could I attract today? Or how many girls can I get this weekend? It's like, man, you're playing the wrong game here. Also, brother, going back to how things were very uncomfortable and frustrating when it comes to presentations, when it comes to memorization and stuff like that, I feel like really relating this to your athletic career is wrestlers thrive on discomfort. So, did you ever reflect on those moments of when things were so hard on those mats? And then you kind of have that realization where, like, wait a minute. This is life is very difficult, but what I did in my past at a very young age with some high level other athletes conquered a lot of demons during that time.
Absolutely.
What else could I do? This life stuff, okay, come on, bring me more struggle, bring me more difficulty because I thrive under that pressure. So like us, man, we need problems. We thrive on problems. We thrive
Absolutely.
on hardship, on the things that really, really test us. So when you were going through those moments of difficulty, was it very familiar? And you're like, I remember this feeling.
I remember that was a separating point from me from most people. Was in wrestling, I got beat up a lot. And I was used to getting my butt kicked every single day. And you learn from those things. And that is a very humbling thing. And you know this as a fighter, is that you go to the gym, there's always going to be someone better than you.
Yes.
And if you are the best person in that gym, you're in the wrong gym.
Yep.
Right. And I started to realize that was, I'm around all these smart people, but they've never had failure like I've had failure. And how they reacted to those failures was a lot different than the way I reacted to those failures. When they, a presentation wouldn't go good, or they're stressing out about a product sign off, right? I've been there before. I'm used to losing, and failure is a driving point for me. That has always been a driving point for me, is people's doubt of me. That keeps me motivated. Yeah. And when I was in those same positions, I had to be the one to be like, guys, it's okay. It's going to be all right. Whether you fail it or not, you could do it again. And it was not like, oh my God, you failed this and you're fired. They're just trying to help us learn this product. Yeah. What could you do tonight that's going to help you tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And that was hard. I didn't realize how much I always said how are people tired after work? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, how are you so tired after work? Like, this is what you do every day. You choose to do this. Yeah. And if you don't love it, then why are you doing it? And with that is failure is going to have to happen. It's going to happen regardless. And it's going to happen in the most significant ways, right? Yeah. What if happens, how are you going to react in those moments, right? 10% is how you react, or 90% is how you react. 10% is what happens to, right? Yep. And how are you going to be able to do that? And I think that's very important.
You also got to know how to lose and be prepared to lose, because it's gonna come, man. Like, if you study anybody who's some of the titans and successful people out there, man, the one thing that they know how to do is just lose, but come back so different. Mm-hmm. Look at Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, all these guys who are just animals and sick dudes. Yeah. Because there's guys out there, man, who are just like you and I, man. I know we are those guys in the room who need to do the extra, because we recognize, we're like, man, we're surrounded by a lot of smart people here. And it's like, we're forced to do the extra because we don't process things like that. Like, they're so intelligent. Like, oh my God, like, kind of intimidated being in this room. Those are the rooms that you need to be in. Because I've seen a lot of guys, man, be in gyms where they're the tough guy and they're being all flashy and showing off. I was like, oh, dude, you need to go to a gym where you're getting your ass whooped, because you ain't going to learn anything here.
I like being the dumbest person in the room, because that means there's so much more to learn. Yeah. And people find, people are smart in different ways. And like we were talking about before about that failure, is it's going to come in life too. And not even failure, devastation, right? Parents passing is going to happen one day, like heartbreak is going to happen. How are you going to react to those things? Is it going to take you a month to figure that out? Is it going to take you a week? Is it going to take you a day? Yeah. Right. My rule is a 48-hour rule. If I can't get over it I have to get over it in 48 hours. If I can't get over it in 48 hours, then something's wrong. I need to look deeper in myself and figure out, why is this bothering me so much, and address it.
Yes.
Or talk to someone, right?
And I'm reading this book right now, and it's really detailing when it comes to Steve Jobs, Apple, and this current CEO of Tim Cook. They asked Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple right now, when Steve Jobs had passed away. They were best friends. They were partners. The interviewer asked him, like, how did you react? And like, what was the feeling like of losing one of your best friends and somebody who you held very, very dear? And Tim Cook looked like he was about to cry, kind of put his head down and had a hard time answering that. He was like, it was one of the most difficult things, and then it wasn't. And then he realized, he was like, the vision and the whole objective that Steve Jobs left behind, he says, that's when you know you just have to continue the work. Like, regardless of what happens, you need to show up. Like, my brother passing away when I was 6 years old, passed away when he was 3 years old. Would really, really be a bother to him while he was looking down on me if I was wasting my potential. You know what I mean? It would be the same thing if Steve Jobs gave Tim Cook the role to be the CEO, and then Tim Cook not performing, Tim Cook not doing his due diligence. So it's like, how are you going to handle this devastation? Like, you really, really need to make sure that these people are looking down at you and you're making them proud. Like, what are you doing to leave your mark in this world? sometimes people do it good, sometimes people do it bad. But it's like, man, do something beautiful here while you can. But
Absolutely.
regardless of what happens, man, the work must continue. And that's a crazy responsibility that guys need to carry. You know, like
Yeah.
we're the men of the house, especially when we have children, when we have a wife. It's like the responsibility will only get higher and higher and higher. But it's a responsibility that we are willing to take because we love struggle, we love the hardship, we love those problems, and it makes us into better men.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel as men, you can't react in a crazy way around your wife, your family, because then everyone else starts to react that same way. Now, if you react with confidence and, you know, you take it down, you take a step down and you're like, okay, this happened. It's going to be okay, but life still moves on regardless, with or without you.
Isn't that so scary too? Because it's like, regardless, it's gonna sting. Regardless, it's like
It
we talk
is.
about devastation, we talk about hurt. It's like, dude, it stings. It really, really does. And it's like the people that you genuinely care about, one day they just won't be here anymore. But it's like, as a man, your reaction will tell the whole story. I wanted to talk about speaking when it comes to the community of sales. You had recently started your own community called the Audacious Few
Mm-hmm.
on social media. I've always envisioned you doing something via social media, and I knew it was going to be very, very valuable. But I always knew you were going to be great. And there are people who are bills and there are people who are investments. And then when I see you doing something great, it's like, I got to be a part of that, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So when that idea came, and did somebody give you that kind of idea, or did you see somebody on social media? Why did you want to start that community?
I wanted to start the community because I wanted to learn and I wanted to help people learn too. And whatever knowledge that I could give, I would give, but I also want to learn about every other aspect because when it comes to weightlifting, when it comes to my faith, I don't know everything. And I love to learn more and more and how, hearing the way that people speak and hearing how they operate, that helps me learn so much. And for me, I have to be doing that to learn. If someone puts a paper in front of me and they're like, study this, there's no way I'm going to be able to study that. That's not the way I learn. I have to actually go do it. I have to go get in the field and be able to learn. And the reason I started it was because I know people who are fitness, that that's their thing. I have people that, with finance, that's their thing. And that's the kind of community that I want to build. Is I want to start building this community where, maybe I start doing, Instagram lives with those people and start chatting with those people just on live. And, I could, for the few people that are joined, that I could be able to, maybe they're interested enough to watch it.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool too. And I'm learning along the way because I'm the one that's going live with them too.
You were just talking about it earlier. Like it's very, very difficult to find those people. So what
It
did
is.
you do? You created a community, and that takes a lot of balls, honestly. Because people are scared to start anything on social media.
It is very scary. And I struggle with that too. But I think when we spoke last, I wanted to do something, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm still kind of don't know what I want to do. And I think that's okay. I think the community was the first step, is to get people who actually are investing in me and I want to invest in them.
Yeah.
And if I could speak to those people, maybe only those people, that's okay with me too.
You and I were speaking about this, like how there's a very, very bad look when it comes to people when they're trying to flex in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What
Mhm.
I feel like the real flex is by passing down value, passing down information, and then you're seeing these people use that information to enhance their life. That to me is a real flex rather than just renting out a Lambo,
Mhm.
showing it off to your story or your feed. And guys, like, hey, if you want to get this car, do what I did, buy my course, etc. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah.
very, we were talking about it off air. It's very, very cringe.
It is very cringe. And I don't think that's real wealth. Like we were talking about, being rich versus wealthy. And I also think I think I have a little bit different of a definition of wealth. I think the person that is able, or whatever they desire, there's people who travel in vans and they go travel the world. That is wealth to them.
Yeah, for
with
sure.
their significant, that is
Yeah.
wealth. They're happy. I think someone with a great family, a great wife, great children, I think that's wealth. Even if they don't have the money, I think that is still wealth.
It's having the freedom to do what you actually genuinely love on a day-to-day basis.
Love, yes. What you love matters.
Exactly. The story that I was telling you off air, My mentor, I really wanted to emphasize this on the podcast. My mentor literally told me to come to his house for one purpose and one purpose only. It was to show me the definition of what wealthy is and what rich is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, okay, well, I kind of have an idea. I've read some books and you know what I mean? But I got to see it firsthand. When I got in his car, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to take you to Steve Jobs' house. He's like, obviously, he's gone. He's no longer here. But his wife still currently lives there. So when we drove to his car, we went to Steve Jobs' house. And I was telling you, it's like, man, it was just a normal, beautiful house. Beautiful. Like nothing crazy, like a nice chimney on the top and beautiful trees are on the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very nice. And then he's kind of like, we're walking down the blocks. He was like, you see, like, this is wealthy. Like, these people are not trying to be flashy. These people are not trying to show off.
Mm-hmm.
They live in beautiful homes. All the neighbors talk to each other. They're all genuine, beautiful people. And then he takes me to where the rich people live. Gated community, meaning these guys' houses are ginormous. And there's like one person or maybe two people that live there. But he was showing me, he was like, you see, this is very unnecessary. It's just for a look. But there's that term out there that exists. And I know, I'm sure you've heard of that too, is like rich is very, very loud and wealth is very, very silent.
Absolutely.
And it's so true, man. And the higher that you get in this game, you will spot that. And that's probably the gross thing about when it comes to personal development, business, and entrepreneurship. You're going to find some beautiful people, man. Genuine, beautiful people. But also down the road, you're going to find some ugly people too. Has your mentors or any buddy from that community has kind of given you that warning a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And they always just say invest in yourself. It's okay to invest in yourself. No matter the cost, always invest in yourself. Don't invest on what you look like. And, you know, I think investing in yourself is not buying things like, you know, Bape and all this stuff and, you know, Supreme. Like that to me, that I don't like that look. That I think if once you grow up, I think you should look like a man.
That look, man, I mean, you and I did it where we used to wear a bunch of logos on us, so and so, but then you get a little older, you're like, you know what? I am genuinely tired of dressing like a boy here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it is.
It's like, going back to again, how do you want to represent yourself? Something that I also wanted to ask you. I said earlier how you were very, very different. Sitting beside you right now, you're a whole different person. And there's a lot of sharpening the blades that we need to do behind the scenes. And I'm very, very curious on the things that you did or the things that you went through to kind of make you realize you're like, you know, I have to make a change here. Things aren't really going the way I want it to go. And I need to readjust my habits completely.
Yeah.
So what were those things that you had to readjust and adapt to make sure that you were becoming a whole different person?
You know, thankfully, like I said, like the college that I chose, I was surrounded around people that were brutally honest with me. And that is what I ask. I ask, if you see that I'm doing something that's not right, or you think that I'm on the wrong lane to go somewhere else, like bring me back. I need that brutal honesty, because it doesn't help me if you're like, oh no, you'll figure it out. You know, like I need those people that are brutally honest with me. And I had a few really brutal, honest people that told me certain things. And one of them was one of my best friends. He said, you know, he saw, you know, in college I was smoking weed and just not really doing much with my day. And he kind of, and, you know, he had, you know, I think that he has his things put together, and he's very like-minded, very similar to me now. Yeah. And he's much younger than me. And he had to tell me that, you know, listen, you keep saying that you want to make money. You keep saying that you want to do these things. But if I'm being completely honest with you, you're not doing any of those things. You're not keeping yourself in shape. Yeah. You look fat. You're smoking weed every day. You're ordering crumble cut. You're doing all these things the wrong way. And you keep telling me that you want to make this money and you have a great potential to do it. Yeah. But you need to switch it up, man. And I had two of those. I had one my freshman year when I got in, when I had a chip on my shoulder and I thought I was better than everybody. And I had a friend that basically told me, listen, man, what you're doing right now is not going to work. And if you keep being like this, we're not going to welcome you. And that was like a huge and brutal honesty. And I was like, whoa, like.
Did you kind of take that to heart? Because a man's ego, When a man's ego is not in check, sometimes he reacts in a wrongful way. He gets angry, he starts to yell back, etc. Or he's very, very grounded. He stays true to himself. He knows himself, and to the point where he'll be like, can you dive more into that? Like, why? What do you see? What patterns do you see? What do you think some of the things that I need to eliminate? Did you kind of take it hard at first and made the adjustment afterwards?
The first time I took it the wrong way. And I was like, this guy doesn't know. He doesn't know what I'm going to do. But the second time, I was a little bit more developed in my character, I think. And when he said that, I took it to heart, but I didn't react. And that's when I knew that I was like, I can't just act like I'm doing these things. I have to actually do them. And it took 2 weeks of separation from everyone to just dial myself in. Okay, I was always that person that felt like I needed to have someone with me at all times. I needed someone with me. Even, I'm going to the store. Can you come with me? Yeah. And always having to have someone there for me. So I had to take a step back and I had to just do those things on myself. I had to just separate myself, because it's times like this when you're out of college that you don't have those groups of people to do those things with, and you have to be able to be okay with yourself, being okay being alone, being okay, because if you just always need people to push you, it's going to go the wrong way. Yeah. And the other one that happened to me was with my faith, and this was, I really believe that it was the wrong way. I think it's the wrong way to push faith on people, is to tell them, you're going to go to hell. But, right? I think that's the wrong way, but it's what I needed to hear, because it was brutal honesty, right? He basically told me, listen, man, you say you believe in God. Never seen you go to church once.
Damn.
You say that you want to learn more of God, but you don't read his word. And he's like, if you were to die right now, do you think you'd go to heaven or hell? Straight up. And I said, I think I'd go to heaven. And he said, you would go to hell. And
shout out to this guy.
Yeah, brutal honesty, right? Very brutal honesty. And that one I took the very wrong way. I resented this guy. I actually haven't talked to him ever since, right? Damn. But because I took it such the wrong way that we just completely separated. We don't have each other's numbers, nothing. But I really do. That one took about 6 months. That one took me, wow, he's kind of right. He's kind of right about it. I think if I were to die that day, I think I would go to hell, because I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't reading the Lord's word. I wasn't doing anything that he wanted me to do. Yeah. And that one took, surprisingly, I'm so thankful to be around people that have that brutal honesty. Yeah. I think that matters so much. I think depending on the person, I think there's a right and wrong way to say it. I think he said it in the wrong way. But it sparked something in me. You have raised your personal stock without a doubt, right? You remember those feelings of temptations. You remember those feelings of distractions. You remember those times of fun. And don't get me wrong, they are fun. They are a good time. And when you do, any man, when they raise their personal stock, distractions come. Those temptations come. And then you kind of have that realization where, like, I remember that. I remember those feelings, and those were fun. And sometimes it's almost like that devil's kind of like pulling you back there. Yeah. Right? Have you felt that lately? More and more. The more that you become faithful, the more temptations come. One of the things that I was struggling with was, temptation and, drinking and smoking. Those things weren't aligned with my goals. And once I stopped doing them, I started to feel more of it. Like, oh my goodness, it was like 2 days ago that I was like, oh my gosh, I am so stressed out. Like, something like a drink would be really nice right now. Yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't align with my goals. How do your daily tasks align with your long-term goals? That is important. And those temptations will come. It's easy to go out on a Friday. It's easy to go out on a Saturday. But sometimes, is it worth spending the money, right? Is it worth, that's another $80 down the drain that you can't do something that could have been thoughtful, that you could have invested in yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important. I feel like this year alone in January, where it's like all of a sudden, girls are coming out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Like all of a sudden, I'm just like, hey, like, what is this?
just because the trajectory is constantly enhancing and changing. It's like the distractions just kind of keep arising.
Mm-hmm.
And brother, I will not lie, as a man, you have that urge. You have that temptation where you're like, this sounds good right now. Because I know what that feeling feels like. And everybody likes this feeling. It's like, come on. But at the same time, it's like, man, do I see any value in this person long term? Like, or is this just like a fling? Or is like gonna give me any fulfillment realistically? And it's like, is it gonna hurt any feelings, cause any trauma within other people? And I'm just not down to do that anymore, man.
It's conviction, isn't it?
Yeah. You got to talk to yourself, and it's like slapping yourself in the face a lot.
Self-dialogue is very important.
Yeah.
Reasoning for sure.
Yeah.
How have you surpassed that, or how have you taken the steps to do that?
Reminding myself of what that feels like. So I've done women wrong. I've treated them wrong, lied, not physically cheated, but emotionally cheated.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done all the wrong things as a man. So the way I want to do things a little bit differently is just could do the complete opposite of what I used to do. So I don't want to use women. I don't want to take advantage of them. I don't want to lie to them. I just want to be honest. But I remember that thought came into my head where it's like, oh man, like this is nice. The attention is nice. The compliments are nice, or this and that. But it's like, dude, stay grounded. Like, remember, you know what that feeling was like. And do you see this individual as a long-term thing? If not, get out. There's no need. Appreciate the compliments. Hope you're doing great. Wish you nothing but love and success. That's it. That's all you got to do. Rather than going with it, wasting time, wasting energy, wasting money.
I think that's something I struggle with as well, though.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've completely got rid of it. Genuine connections are hard to find. They're very hard to find. But I think once you find those people, and it could be friends too. Sometimes you have to let go of friends that just don't align with your goals. That's hard. That's very hard. I found myself being alone in a lot of situations, especially now, where I make more phone calls with people that I love than I actually see people in person. Like, most of the people that are aligned with my goals are not here. They're in LA, they're in Detroit, they're in Louisiana. They're all these people that I worked with, and, the relationships I built in college where everyone's, and you have to be okay with that. You have to, you kind of just have to cheer from afar, like you said. You have to cheer from afar because you know that those people are doing whatever it takes to fulfill their goals. And what's funny is I was talking with one of my buddies and I was like, hey, we need to go on a little vacation. We got to go somewhere. We should go to Texas or something, right? He's like, not this year. And I was like, you're right. You're very right. Not this year. That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like, and the way that my friends speak to me, I love it. It's great. And that's hard to find. And I'm so thankful for that. Like, these people have they molded me. They've really molded me. You are who you surround yourself with every single day.
And that's a hard thing too, man, because it's like when your personal stock raises and then you kind of see the people that you grew up with, not so much. That's the tough part. That's the tough part.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's a very hard one. There's a lot of people that I went to high school with that their goals aren't aligned with me. And it's not even that I don't care about them. I kind of you just kind of have to give them room to grow. And if they do, meet you on that path along the way, that's great.
Yeah.
But right now it's really hard. That's something I've moved back to San Jose, I moved to San Jose, and I'm from Gilroy, which is about 30 minutes south of here. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of friends from high school, but I have very few people that I still talk to. And that sucks, because at the end of the day, it's what you want to become.
I always say this all the time, like, man, if I had love for you then, I'll always have love for you.
Absolutely.
So I saw somebody recently in San Juan Bautista, my hometown, and I haven't seen this girl since high school, but we grew up together since we were third grade. So we pretty much know each other bit by bit. She was shocked by the way I showed her when it comes to energy and love. Because usually when you don't see somebody for a long time, they kind of represent as like, oh, hi, how are you? But It's like, no, I don't want to give that energy. I want to give you that same energy 10x more than when I last saw you. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
again, if I loved you then, I still love you now.
Absolutely.
You know, it doesn't go away just because we drifted apart. We don't talk on a consistent basis. It's like, regardless, like, I still have that thought. I'm like, oh, I remember those memories. Oh man, those were good times. Like, man, the laughs are so funny. The memories, they don't go away, man. They don't go away.
Keeping relationships is very important. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is like I don't get to see a lot of people anymore. I'm working, I'm coaching. It's hard. It's hard to make time for people. It's very hard to make time for people.
Yeah.
But you have to be okay. My rule is if I call you 3 times and you don't respond, then I'm not going to try to call you anymore. You know, and that's okay. You have a phone too. I try to call you 3 times. You could always reach back out and I'm always here for you. But if you can't answer the phone, then how much friends are we really? That's like one of my goals this year is to communicate better.
Yeah.
Is to make more phone calls to those people I love, because it's hard to, you should always show gratitude. That's one thing that I've been focusing on too, is gratitude. Yeah. Like, find hope in everyone and be grateful for whatever that they could do for you.
Yeah.
And what you could do for them as well.
So you said the word coaching a while ago.
Yeah.
So to me, my man, that is a very brave task, because that is a position of leadership, and that's a lot of pressure. You know, when people look at you and when you are speaking, they are listening. So it's almost to the point where it's like, oh, that's the coach. He's there to guide us. He's there to help us. He's here to make us better. And we have to make sure we're listening, so on and so forth. And I know you took so much principles and attributes from your coaches as you've grown up.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are some of the things that you took from them that you tweaked a little bit that you're implementing within these kids?
Being more personable. One thing I didn't have in college, well, it's not that I didn't have in college. I think college is more like a business. When you're on the wrestling team, if you're good, you're really good, and they're going to really invest in you. I think one thing that I've been trying to take into consideration that I want to do is, you know, build those relationships with everyone on that team, getting to know that person, getting to know those kids, because those kids are confused. Those kids are in a very, very stressful time. I remember, like, I think one of the most stressful times is like when you're getting into high school, when you're going from high school to college, and then when you're going from college to life is one of the hardest ones too, right? So I'm just trying to be a helping hand to all those kids in every way I can, whether it's technique or if it's advice. I try to build those personal relationships where I get to see who they are. I don't want to hear the little robot talk, yes sir, no sir. Like, tell me, like, you know, I want to know your personality. I want to get to know you as you. And I think they find value in that. I hope so, at least. Yeah. I haven't been doing it for too long, but like from the times that I'm there, like when I first showed up, they didn't really know who I was. I kind of just peeked my head in a little bit, but then I got to run a little bit, you know, some practices, and they got to start seeing my personality, and it was cool. It was cool. I got to go on trips with them. Those are the trips are the things that build those relationships. Get to know their personalities and be in their corner. Like, whether it's on the mat or if it's in life, like, I hope that they know that they could always come to me regardless. I tell them I love you after every practice. You know, if I'm coaching that practice, be like, hey guys, I just want to say I'm very grateful to be here. You guys drive me to be better as a person, and, you know, as a wrestler too, to continue to learn. I've never in college did I ever watch film. Never really watched film, never really cared about wrestling. I loved wrestling. I loved doing it though. I didn't like watching people do it. Yeah. But now but once I became a coach, it became more of an investment, because I was like, wow, like, how can I help these kids but get better? I think what drives me is being able to help people in different ways. And I find myself watching wrestling more now because I want to help those kids. Yeah. And
is that a lot of pressure though, being in a position of leadership?
I try not to make it a lot of pressure. I think it's just important to do it with a smiling face. I think what you bring off is what everyone else is going to do, right? And if I could go in, if I show up at practice and I let my work day affect me at practice, these kids aren't going to have fun. I try to let them know. It's like, guys, you guys are willingly here. It's okay, you know, to take a step back. It's okay. Like, and I try to be that helping source with a smiling face every day. If I think that matters. I think showing your personality matters, and being very charismatic with those people, I think that matters.
And going back to, again, personality, there's these books that I've been really reading recently when it comes to like competition.
Mm-hmm.
Sun Tzu, The Art of War, Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah.
There's these books where they're just trying to analyze their competition, their competitors, their enemies, and seeing how they can defeat them. So in sales, there's companies trying to compete against another company,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what thrives. That's what makes people get better, so on and so
Yep.
forth, right?
Competition.
So within your situation and your world of sales, when it comes to watching competition, studying, like you were saying, studying film, there's another way of studying when it comes to the world of business, when it comes to sales, entrepreneurship, personal development, etc. How are you guys looking at competition, and how are you guys looking to stay ahead?
Oh, healthy competition always is finding that core group. I found like 5 people in my company that I did this program with, and I made them let me know. I said, "How much do you want to make this year? I'm gonna hold you accountable to that. Let's do it. Let's have a healthy competition this year, and like let's really drive each other. Because I know if that guy's making more sales than me, I'm doing something wrong. I have to keep grinding. And it's cool that you mentioned that Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. Your enemy, choosing your enemy, right? It's the way he describes it, because it's not really an enemy, but
Yes.
it's what your driving factor is. It's
uh-huh.
kind of choosing a driving factor that he just uses the word enemy.
Yeah.
And he's always talks about how it doesn't have to be a person. Your driving factor doesn't have to be a person. Your enemy doesn't have to be a person. It could be something that you're trying to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. I try to pick the worst parts about myself as my enemy and try to see how I could develop those traits to be a better person.
It forces you to really do the deep surgery and dissect yourself. You know what I mean?
You have to self-analyze.
Exactly. And I remember even when I was growing up too, I'm like, I used to think this person was my enemy, but it's like when they say when you surpass your enemy, in the book specifically, when it says when you surpass your enemy, that is no longer an enemy anymore.
Nope.
It's like you got to move on. The power of books, man. They slap you in the face sometimes and they make you realize you're like, oh, shit.
That's I think we were talking about that the last podcast, is how like this is investing in yourself, and when you it just takes one, right? But the one thing I will say is how are you actually applying it?
Yeah.
I think that's important, right? Because if you're reading all these books but you're not actually taking the necessary steps to get better, then nothing's happening. You're just reading books and you just keep reading the same thing over and over. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
But if you take that, right, like take that, choose your enemies wisely, and you choose to actually fulfill something within yourself or with a person, then you're going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you'll never grow. And I think that's the thing that people struggle with. I think we were talking about that, is like, if you don't like the book, put it away and read something else. It's okay to not finish the book. It's all right. You could always go back to it. Put your little, I use $1. I don't have a bookmark, but I use like
That's a good idea, actually.
I use a single $1 and I use it as a bookmark. It's the easiest thing to use.
It's all ripped up.
Yeah. Well. But yeah, like I was reading a book, didn't like it, I put it back. It's okay. Picked up another one. Right now I'm reading Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Nice.
And I've actually never really read like bibliography. Is it a bibliography, right? Yeah, I don't really read bibliographies, but I find comfort in it, because I'm reading it and I'm like, this guy's a very successful guy. How did he get here? Well, he talks about a little bit about luck. Luck matters, but it also reflects what you do on your day-to-day tasks.
We love books.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because you see some of these books here. It's like a lot of these people are dead, especially like, say, Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
Mm-hmm.
He's been gone a very, very long time. And the fact that a lot of CEOs, a lot of business owners still have that book laying on their desk and they read it every month, every quarter, says a lot about that. So it's like people die, but what they leave behind doesn't die. Very interesting, right? So you and I,
That is very interesting.
we're gonna leave this earth one day. What are we gonna leave behind though?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about maybe putting a book into place and writing, and then actually writing something of your own and publishing it?
I've never really thought about that. I love to write, but I've never really thought about that. That's a good thing to think about, because I think that is important. I think sometimes, again, like I said, like I have that imposter syndrome where I'm like, I don't think I'm good enough to write a book, right? And sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough to be in certain rooms.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I've taken a step forward is the way I dress. I think the more professional I look, the more serious people will take me.
Yeah.
Even if you're not there yet.
I went to Redemption with Kalani,
Mm-hmm.
one of my dear sisters, and I dressed in a suit. And anytime I get a chance to wear a suit, I'm gonna wear one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was funny when I left, when we were all exiting, saying our goodbyes, etc. I got approached by so many people, and Kalani was like shocked. She was like, "Geez, like everybody was trying to get a hold of you." They're like, "Well, they were curious. They were curious on like, what does he do? Look at his energy. Look at the way he's talking, the way he represents himself, so on and so forth. What does he do? I want to pick his brain."
You get a lot more questions. You get more relationships, right?
Exactly.
And I think that that's cool because, if I dress a certain way, I think people are going to be more willing to talk to you. They want to know more about you. And that's when you get to pick their brains.
Yeah.
That's when you take it aside and refuse to talk about yourself and choose to learn about that person.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. I know you're interested, but like, what do you do? Like, how have you applied this to your life? And most likely those people that do approach you are going to be in a similar mindset, similar goals. So I think that's really cool too.
And
I
it
think,
builds a solid network, man.
yeah.
You know, I feel like when you put yourself into these spaces, you realize that there's lanes. There's so many different lanes. You're like, oh, I'm like right here. And then you're right here. And then I meet another person and they're right here. And it just keeps getting higher and higher. And it's like every lane that you touch, you get higher as well. And that's the progression that you see and that you kind of have to recognize within yourself too. Because when I was going through old footage within us, I was like, geez, we are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy thing to say. And you said in the beginning of the podcast, it's very difficult to recognize that.
It is very hard. And I had a mentor tell me is, dress how you want to be like confronted, or not that's the wrong way to say it. Dress how you want to be treated.
Oh.
Right. If you're going to church in sweats and, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think it serves a bigger purpose. It's more than just about you.
Yeah.
It's about repaying whoever, invested into you as well. Yeah.
So I have two more questions for you, my man. So let's say this is your podcast, all right, for today. And if there was a question that you were curious and that you wanted to ask me, what would it be?
What have you done in your life that you think motivated you? Like, what is your driving factor? I guess I should say.
I remember when I was an athlete, the whole point of being a fighter is to get better. And I remember when I retired fighting, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea what I was going to be, what I wanted to pursue. All I knew is I just wanted to get better. That takes a lot of investment within yourself and asking yourself a lot of questions. So that whole driving force still remains, is to just get better. And I've noticed that within every aspect of my life. When it comes to my fitness, when it comes to my day-to-day, when it comes to my relationships, when it comes to my finances, I get better at all those avenues. That mindset that I took from fighting was to get better every single day and get my ass whipped every single day. I take it to every day into this life as well, where every day has to be difficult. There has to be some sort of struggle, some complications, some problem that needs to be solving. But the whole objective is to get better. Another big driving force is to leave something beautiful behind, because I'm going to die one day, but what do I leave behind that's beautiful?
Yeah.
A lot of people, leave this world and they leave chaos behind. They leave havoc. They leave trauma towards their family, etc. I want to leave something beautiful behind.
I kind of want to second that. If you were to give advice to someone, who maybe be in a slump, or, they just lost their job and they're trying to get better, but it seems like everything, the world's against them. What kind of advice would you give someone like that?
You know this too, because about the wrestling days, it's like, man, smile during that suck, even though it does feel weird to kind of smile at chaos, but you really, really need to. The hardship sucks. It stings. It's a very unnecessary feeling, but the older you get, the more necessary it is, and the more you want it and the more you crave for it. So I would tell him is embrace that hardship. Because when you embrace that hardship, you become a different individual.
Absolutely.
The confidence raises, the walk gets a little bit different, the speaking gets a little bit different. Guys approach me all the time, especially young men, and they're confused, they're scratching, they're clawing, they're wondering, what do I got to do, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, whatever you're thinking about, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because everybody has an idea of what they want to do, but
Absolutely.
They're terrified.
They're terrified.
So I always tell them, like, everything that I did, the passion was always there, but it was just having the urgency to just kind of start it.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't perfect at first, it's like, man, like the fruits come. Like the doors open.
Yeah.
And the more you execute, the doors just get bigger.
You have to almost search for failure and search for rejection.
The higher you get when it comes to all that struggle that you pass by, it's going to get higher. And that's where your aura gets higher. That's where your presence gets higher. Everything about you will get higher. But it's all about that walk, man. It's hard and it hurts. But bro, that's why I welcome it so much.
Yeah.
Losing, failure, all that stuff, it makes us into better men. And the more that we face that stuff, we're better because of it. Have the mental capacity to deal with that stuff, because everybody has this sexy plan. Everybody. But do you have the mental capacity to actually willing to take it every day? But I would like to ask you the same question, because there's a lot of young men who are lost right now. They're stuck. And that's what kind of breaks my heart about this whole time in society right now, is like guys are just kind of like wondering. They have a lot of pressure. They're just scared of what to do, so on and so forth. But a guy like you at your age, it's very, very fulfilling on my end. For somebody who's about to be 30, seeing somebody at your age execute the way you are executing, the mindset that you have. And guys crave that. Guys want that. They're walking as boys, but they want to turn into men. So if you had a young guy scratching and clawing, kind of pulling on that leather coat that you're wearing, and ask you, Daniel, I need help, what kind of wisdom that you would pass down to me?
I would say to do the similar thing what I did is write what you like about yourself. Write the things that you're good at, and write the things that you want to improve, and put them on paper and have it and keep it there. And then in 6 months, do it again. And you'll start seeing those things that you didn't like about yourself start switching. They start kind of escaping. Oh, it's less things that I don't like about myself. And there's always going to be something that you don't like about yourself. But I think visually seeing it, visually writing it, or physically writing it, I think that's important. I think self-reflection is very, very important. What did I do today that's going to make me proud tomorrow? I think that's very important. I think self-dialogue as well, recording your failures, maybe if it's on paper, maybe it's, how you been. I try to do this thing where I want to do it every year and just kind of write about where my life is at the moment. And then you'll start looking back, and then, in 3-4 years, you start looking back and like, oh my goodness, this was a really tough time in my life. Wow, I can't believe I overcame that. That's really cool. Then you flip to the next page and you're like, wow, I don't even remember doing that year, but that was kind of fulfilling. And you just start to learn more and more about yourself, recording it on that journal. I think that's really cool. I would say pick up a book and don't worry about if you don't like it. Like I said, pick up another one and find something that really drives you to being comfortable with yourself.
Thank you so much for coming on, my man.
you.
It is very, very impressive to see the man that you have become, man. And I have been studying talent for a long time. I have been studying success for a long period of time. And I am not saying this just because you are a brother of mine. I'm not saying this just because you are on my podcast, but there are certain people out there who just have the it factor, and you're one of those people. I'm not saying that just to be nice, because you and I, we're those brothers that are going to challenge each other.
Absolutely.
So me giving you this compliment now, that's great. But I want to make sure that you continue to get better. And you are going to keep me accountable as well, because we make each other better. But my man, I am so damn proud of you, the man that you're becoming. And I know you're doing God's work, and you're also making your parents proud.
Hope so.
That's the biggest flex, my man. But thank you, and let's do it again, my man.
Let's do it.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.